Americans think the big names rule the automotive world. Ford, Toyota, Chevrolet, the names everyone knows. But I spent months analyzing global car data, and what I found should embarrass every American automaker alive. There is a car that costs less than a used riding lawnmower. It has sold over 16 million units worldwide. It dominates 3 entire continents, and most Americans have never even seen a picture of it. The average American car payment is now $770 a month. This is the story of how billions of people figured out a smarter way to get around, while Americans signed themselves into 6 years of payments just to commute to work. What Americans think they know about cars. Let's have an honest conversation about what Americans actually do with cars. The average new vehicle transaction price in America has now crossed $50,000. That's before market adjustment fees. The extra $3,000 to $5,000 some dealers charge just for the privilege of buying the car. Then comes the 72-month loan, the 84-month loan. Nearly 30% of Americans with auto loans are underwater. They owe the bank more than the car is worth. The average monthly payment is a record $770 a month. Nearly 1 in 5 new car loans now carries a payment exceeding $1,000 a month. Car insurance? The average American pays over $2,300 a year. Here's the reality. Over half of all American car trips are under 3 miles, commuting, errands, dropping the kids at practice. We are financing luxury living rooms on wheels for 6 years to drive alone to the grocery store. This is not a video about American stupidity. This is a video about an industry that spent 50 years convincing the most powerful consumer market on earth that a car is a status symbol and made $50,000 the entry price for basic transportation. The system shifted. Most people didn't even notice. And while that was happening, billions of people on 3 continents quietly built something better. So I ranked the 4 biggest car-producing nations by one standard. Which country actually solved transportation for the real world? Not for American showrooms, for the places where cars have to work or families don't eat. Number 4 will not surprise you. Number 1 will make you question everything you've been told about what a car needs to be. Let's go. Country number 4, China, the disposable EV. Chinese manufacturers are running the same play in the budget car market they ran in motorcycles. Flood the world with the cheapest product imaginable and capture market share before quality catches up. Prices look impossible to argue with. The cheapest highway-legal EVs in China start at around $4,500. Full electric, touchscreen, air conditioning, for less than a decent used bicycle in San Francisco. For a moment it looked unstoppable. Then 3 problems destroyed the dream. Problem number 1. Build quality. These aren't really cars, they're golf carts with a registration plate. The suspension crashes over potholes in a way that tells you exactly how much the engineers cost. Battery degradation in the extreme heat covering most of Africa, the Middle East, and South Asia is brutal. When your $4,500 battery needs replacing, it can cost as much as the car itself. That's not transportation, that's planned obsolescence with a charging port. Problem number 2, the EV graveyard. You've probably seen the footage. Tens of thousands of EVs abandoned. Here's what that footage actually shows. These are mostly ride-sharing fleet vehicles, not consumer cars. Startups collapsed when government subsidies were withdrawn. The business model died, the cars followed, but the lesson for consumers is real. When the ecosystem collapses, your car becomes worthless overnight. Problem number 3, no service support. The brands that win globally don't just build a product, they build everything around it. The parts network, the trained mechanics, the decades of institutional knowledge. Chinese manufacturers showed up with product and nothing else. When the car broke down, the startup that made it had often already pivoted to something else. You're not buying a car, you're buying a bet that the company survives long enough to fix it. Country number 3, Germany, the expensive trap. German engineering is genuinely some of the finest in the world. I'm not here to call German cars bad. I'm here to explain why they lost the real world. Problem number 1, the price. The base Volkswagen Golf, supposed to be the affordable German car, starts at over 27,000 euros in Germany. In America, you can't even buy a base Golf anymore. The entry point is the GTI at $33,670. The people's car priced itself out of the people. For a family in Colombia or Côte d'Ivoire, a German car isn't an option, it's a fantasy. These vehicles are designed for households that can absorb a $35,000 purchase without financial crisis. That describes a small fraction of the global population. Problem number 2, the repair nightmare. Here's where it gets personal for anyone who's ever owned a German car out of warranty. VW and Audi's EA888 engines, found in millions of Golfs, GTIs, Passats, and Tigans, use a plastic thermostat and water pump housing bolted to a hot engine block. It cracks from thermal cycling because plastic and hot metal expand at different rates. It's a known defect. VW acknowledged it. Fixing it requires removing the intake manifold. 4 to 6 hours of labor at $150 to $200 an hour. A $50 plastic part, a $1,800 bill. Problem number 3, too complex for the real world. German cars are engineered for a world of dense dealership networks and customers who can absorb unexpected repair bills without crisis. Electronic parking brakes require special diagnostic tools to service. Engine computers require dealer software to reset basic functions. In rural Brazil, in Kenya, and rural India, when something breaks, you need it fixed with what's available. German engineering assumes infrastructure that most of the world doesn't have. Country number 2, Japan, the trusted but pricey. Now we come to Japan, and this is where I need to be careful. I have enormous respect for Japanese automotive engineering. Toyota and Honda didn't build their global reputations by accident. They built them by making cars that start every morning, run for 300,000 miles, and can be repaired in a driveway with basic tools. That reliability is not marketing. It is documented, proven fact. So Japan should be number 1, right? Not quite. Japan is number 2 on this list. Not because their cars are bad, because being good in a way that costs money to deliver is not enough when 4 billion people can't pay that price. Reason number 1, price positioning. A base Toyota Yaris in most developing markets runs $15,000 to $18,000. A Honda Jazz, their affordable offering, starts around $16,000. These are not luxury vehicles. These are small, practical hatchbacks. In countries where the average annual income is $5,000 to $8,000, these prices represent 2 to 3 years of salary. Japanese manufacturers target the middle class. That's a rational business decision. But it structurally excludes the billions of people who need a car, can afford a car, but cannot afford a Japanese car. Reason number 2, wrong priorities for the real world. Japanese vehicles have fuel injection systems, drive-by-wire throttles, and electronic stability control, all excellent features. All features that require trained technicians and diagnostic equipment to service. A mechanic in rural Nepal with a basic socket set can keep a simple carbureted engine running for 20 years. The same mechanic facing a modern fuel injection fault code is helpless without equipment he can't afford. Simplicity is not a weakness. For 4 billion people, simplicity is the feature. Reason number 3, the total cost gap. When you include financing costs, unavoidable for most developing world buyers, a $15,000 Japanese car becomes an $18,000 to $20,000 commitment over 5 years. The gap between what people can pay monthly and what they need remains unbridgeable. Japan optimized for reliability, India optimized for accessibility, and at the scale of 4 billion people, accessibility won. Country number 1, the reveal. So who's number 1? Which country built the car that outlasted Chinese disposability, German complexity, and Japanese pricing, simultaneously across 3 continents for over 20 years? It comes from a country that was told, when it started, that it couldn't compete with Japan, that its roads were too rough, its buyers too poor, its engineers too inexperienced to build anything that would last. The car starts under $4,000 brand new. It has sold over 4.7 million units in its primary market alone, and over 16 million across all its variants worldwide. It was the number 1 selling car in its primary market for 16 consecutive years. It gets 55 to 60 miles per gallon. It weighs under 1,850 pounds. A new front bumper costs about $25. A new headlight costs about $30. A complete engine replacement costs less than a brake job on a Porsche. And it didn't come from where anyone was looking. India. The Maruti Suzuki Alto. And I know exactly what you're thinking. A tiny 3-cylinder hatchback? That's the winner? Yes, stay with me. Because what this car did, and how it did it, changes how you think about what a car is supposed to be. The empire. In India, the Alto held the position of best-selling car for 16 consecutive years, from 2004 to 2020. The Ford Model T held America's attention for roughly the same duration in its era. Maruti Suzuki now holds nearly 40% of India's entire passenger car market in a country of 1.4 billion people. That is not a brand, that is infrastructure. When India began its modern economic expansion and hundreds of millions of people entered the middle class for the first time, the Alto was often the very first car a family ever owned. Not a used car, not a borrowed car, their car, the first one. Suzuki, the parent brand, is the #2 best-selling manufacturer in South Africa and the #1 passenger car brand in Chile. These are not niche presences. These are dominant market positions built over years of proving that the car works, the parts exist, and the service network shows up. The human story. Let me tell you about a man. Let's call him Rajesh. He grew up in Jaipur. His father took the bus to work every day for 30 years, a 2-hour round trip. When Rajesh got his first real job as a teacher, his goal was simple. He wanted to drive his daughter to school himself. Not a luxury, not a status symbol, just that. He bought an Alto, base model, manual windows. He didn't want a better car. He wanted control over his time. When you ask Alto owners in India why they chose the base model, manual windows, no touchscreen, nothing extra, the answer is always the same math. In 10 years, I will spend less owning this car than my father spent on bus tickets. That is what the Alto is. Not a car for people who want more than they need. A car for people who finally have exactly what they need. 3 reasons. India won. Reason number 1. They asked the right question. Germany asked, how do we build the most engineered car possible? Japan asked, how do we build the most reliable car possible? America asked, how do we build the biggest car possible? Maruti Suzuki asked one question. What does a family earning $500 a month actually need to own a car? The answer was specific. Under $4,000, 55 miles per gallon because fuel is expensive and salaries are not. Under 1,850 pounds because light cars put less stress on every component and every repair. A simple engine any mechanic in any town can fix, physical buttons and mechanical windows. Because a motorized window regulator that breaks costs more to fix than a family's monthly grocery budget. When the manual window on an Alto breaks, you fix it with a $10 gear and a screwdriver in 15 minutes. When the motorized window on a modern SUV fails, you can't use the drive-thru for 6 weeks while you save up for a $400 repair on a car you're already paying $770 a month for. Simplicity isn't a compromise. For billions of people, it is the whole point. Reason number 2. The physics. The industry won't tell you. On a rough road, real mud, deep ruts, the kind of terrain that covers most of the developing world, a lighter car wins, not a heavier one. When a massive American SUV hits deep mud, its weight is its enemy. It sinks. It digs itself a grave. You need a winch. The Alto, at under 1,850 pounds, its skinny tires cut through the mud to find hard ground, where wide SUV tires hydroplane on their own weight. It skips across the surface while the big machines are digging in. In the Indian Himalayas, locals have given the Alto a nickname, Lord Alto, not for its horsepower, for its refusal to quit on mountain passes where heavy cars go to die. I've seen footage of Altos making it through monsoon floods that would swallow an F-150 up to its headlights. Reason number 3, the ecosystem always wins. Maruti Suzuki now has over 5,500 service touchpoints across India. In cities, in small towns, in places most global brands have never heard of. When you buy an Alto, you are not buying a car. You are buying into a 40-year ecosystem of parts, mechanics, and institutional knowledge. Every third mechanic in India has spent half his career working on Alto engines. Parts are cheap because volume is massive. The knowledge is universal because ownership is universal. The car earns trust not by being perfect, but by being everywhere. That network, not the horsepower, not the touchscreen, is the real product. Why Americans are missing out. So if this car succeeds across 3 continents, why have most Americans never heard of it? 3 reasons. Reason number 1, brand perception. Americans are trained to equate expense with quality. We believe a $40,000 crossover must be vastly superior to a $4,000 hatchback. But 3 billion people judge cars by one standard. Does it start every morning, and does owning it keep me out of debt? By that standard, the only standard that matters for most of the planet, the Alto is not the inferior product. It is the superior one. Reason number 2, the safety arms race. You can't buy an Alto new in America. It doesn't meet federal safety regulations. And let's be direct. Yes, an Alto loses a collision with a 6,000-pound Tahoe. I'm not saying the Alto is a Volvo. It isn't. But when the choice for billions of people is a 20-year-old motorcycle with 3 passengers or a new Alto, the Alto is a genuine leap in safety. Context matters. And here's the bigger problem. By buying the 6,000-pound Tahoe, you are not making yourself safer. You are making yourself part of the threat. When everyone drives a 5,000-pound vehicle because they're afraid of everyone else's, nobody is safer. The cars just got heavier, and the payments got larger. We regulated affordable cars out of existence, and then told ourselves it was for safety. Reason number 3, Detroit surrendered the bottom. Ford killed the Fiesta and the Focus. Chevrolet killed the Cruze. Dodge killed the Dart. American manufacturers abandoned the affordable car market. Not because Americans didn't want affordable cars, but because the margins on a $50,000 SUV are vastly higher than on a $20,000 sedan. They used EPA loophole regulations that rewarded building bigger. They funded the marketing to make you want the expensive thing. The average American car payment is $770 a month, over 72 months, $55,440. A reliable $8,000 commuter car paid in cash, $8,000, same money. 2 outcomes. One gives you a car, the other gives you financial freedom. The auto industry wants you thinking about horsepower, about how the leather smells. They want the payment to feel normal. Over half of American car trips are under 3 miles. 1 person, 1 bag of groceries. For that trip, you do not need a $50,000 machine. You need something that starts, moves, and doesn't bankrupt you. The rest of the world figured this out. 3 continents are driving it right now. In November 2025, Maruti Suzuki crossed 30 million cumulative sales in India alone. The Alto is still the most sold car in the company's history. The question the industry doesn't want you asking is simple. What do I actually need a car to do? 3 continents already have the answer. They've been driving it for 25 years. Be honest. Would you trade the comfort and the badge for 0 car debt? Drop it in the comments. I'm pinning the best answers from both sides. Hit like if this changed how you think about cars. Subscribe for more content that asks the questions the industry would rather you didn't. See you in the next one.